I don't remember the exact day things started unraveling. Maybe they'd been unraveling a long time. I just hadn't pulled the thread yet. That afternoon, I was standing on Mama's porch with a box of pecan rolls in my hands and the kind of smile you wear when you've been trained to be polite, even when no one deserves it. Clarine opened the door, already half turned back toward her guests. She looked perfect, as always. Her lipstick matched the napkins. Her tone, sugary. "Oh, y'all, this is Zora," she called over her shoulder. "An old friend of the family. She's been around forever." Old friend of the family. I didn't blink, just stepped inside, let her kiss my cheek, nodded to the neighbors I hadn't seen since the last funeral. Clarine floated through the room, collecting compliments like she had somewhere to put them. I found my spot near the kitchen counter, same place I always drifted to when I didn't belong in a conversation. I opened the pastry box and arranged the rolls like a hostess, though no one had asked me to bring anything. That's how it always was. They'd eat what I made and forget I'd made it. It wasn't rage that settled in my stomach that day. It was something softer, like mildew. Later, as the sun started dipping low, Royce offered to drive me home. He said he had errands to run in town earlier, used my car. I slid into the passenger seat and buckled in. Reached into the glove box for napkins, because that's what I always do. That's when I saw it. A tube of personal lubricant, nestled beside a greeting card. Not just any card, a silver and white anniversary card. My name wasn't on it, but I knew Clarine's handwriting the way a baker knows a cracked pie crust. Looping, overstated. The smell hit me next. Faint, floral, familiar. Her perfume. She'd been in this car. My pulse didn't race. My body didn't shake. I just closed the glove box. Quiet. Like I was afraid of waking up something I couldn't put back to sleep. Royce asked if I wanted music on. I said no. He didn't look at me. I didn't look at him either. I kept thinking, who carries that kind of thing around? Who tucks it neatly next to a card about forever? I didn't ask. I already knew the answers would come in the form of lies or laughter, and I wasn't in the mood for either. We passed the gas station where he once surprised me with a hot coffee and a honey bun. That was years ago. I remembered it because it was small and sweet and rare. Now, I counted every intersection we drove through like it marked a place we'd never return to. Part of me wondered, was it always there? Have I just been too trusting? Too busy baking birthday cakes and balancing receipts to notice that my marriage had curdled? I thought about asking him, who is she? Why her? How long? But the questions felt too heavy and my mouth too tired. Instead, I watched his hands on the wheel, same hands that used to fix the hinge on Mama's screen door. Now they just gripped and twisted like he didn't know where he was going anymore. And me? I smiled. That smile, the one you give when you're deciding whether to fight or fold, stayed on my lips all the way home. He kissed me on the forehead before he got out of the car, said something about dinner next Friday. I nodded, but that kiss felt like a goodbye I didn't agree to. I didn't sleep that night, not because of what I saw, but because of what I finally allowed myself to believe. The next morning, I baked cinnamon rolls, not because anyone asked for them, not even because Mama particularly liked them anymore. It's just what I did when I needed to move my hands, to feel useful while the inside of me was unraveling. By late morning, I was standing on Mama's porch again, holding the box warm against my chest. I knocked twice and let myself in. The house hadn't changed much since I was a girl. Same faded couch, same cross-stitched "God bless this mess" frame near the hall. But it didn't feel like home. Not anymore. Clarine was already there, sitting with her legs crossed and her voice loud enough for the neighbors to hear. She looked up and smiled like a pastor's wife welcoming a wayward soul. "There she is," she called. "Mama, your friend from church dropped by." I stood still, waited for the correction. It didn't come. Mama turned, bright-eyed but confused. "Sarah's friend?" she said, squinting. "Oh, how nice of you to stop in." I laughed. Quiet. Then walked to the kitchen like I'd done it 1,000 times. Clarine kept talking about some award she won at the college. Mama nodded like a bobblehead on a dashboard. I didn't interrupt. Just unpacked the rolls, reheated a plate, made tea. Clarine always had the conversation. I always had the cleanup. It was around noon when Royce's phone buzzed. He'd left it charging in the guest bedroom, same room I once painted sky blue when we first moved in. A notification lit up the screen. "You always know how to make me laugh. See you tomorrow?" The name on the message read, Theodore L. I didn't believe in coincidences anymore. The phrasing, the tone, I could hear it in Clarine's voice already. I opened the phone. No passcode. Royce never thought I'd look. I never used to. I read the message again, screenshotted it, emailed it to myself. Then closed it like I hadn't just seen my marriage for what it truly was. "You always know how to make me laugh," I whispered, "and you never saw when I stopped laughing." I placed the phone back exactly how I found it and walked out to the living room, where Mama was poking at a bowl of chicken salad. She beamed when I handed her a plate. "You're always so kind, dear. Clarine told me you used to help out at the bakery, too." I blinked. "I ran the bakery, Mama." "Oh, right, baby. You baked. Clarine built the business, though. She always was the organized one." That stung more than I let on. I handed her a glass of sweet tea, pretending it was just another meal, another small correction. "You were always a little too sensitive, baby," she added, stirring her fork through the salad. "You've got to toughen up if you want to keep your place in this world." I nodded, even though every word scraped. The rest of lunch was quiet. I let her talk, let her memories twist into whatever shape they wanted. I wasn't going to chase the truth around the table anymore. Later, as I stood to leave, Clarine offered to take Mama to church on Sunday. "And maybe we'll get your hair fixed up too," she said. Mama lit up like a porch light. When I leaned in to hug her, she called me darlin', kissed my cheek, and never once said my name. I stepped out into the sunlight, pulled out my keys, and read the message that had just buzzed in. "Royce. Working late again? Don't wait up." I stared at it for a long second, then deleted it without replying. I started the engine, backed out of the driveway, and whispered into the stale silence of the car. "If you're going to erase me, let me draw the last line." By Sunday afternoon, I was back in the mirror, holding that same blue dress again. The one from my bakery's first grand opening. It still fit, though it didn't feel like it belonged to me anymore. I hung it back up. I wore something plain instead, safe. Clarine always knew how to wear a room like jewelry. I figured she'd try to outshine the candles on Mama's birthday cake. The invite had come through her email, not Mama's handwriting. Said the event would be semi-formal, though when I arrived at the Natchez Community Center, I realized I'd underdressed for a family gathering disguised as a press conference. Clarine was already inside, surrounded. Her dress was floral, her laugh was loud, and she had a dozen ways of making eye contact without ever looking at me. I walked in with lilies. She'd already brought lilies, larger ones, in a crystal vase. No one asked me where I'd been. No one offered me a seat. I made my way toward the back, where the coffee sat lukewarm and forgotten. I stood there, folding napkins and pretending that meant I had a role in the event. The lights dimmed. The room hushed. A projector hummed on, and a video titled, "A Tribute to Mama Liv," filled the wall. Piano music swelled. Black and white photos of Mama's childhood gave way to decades of family memories. I smiled when I saw the photo of our kitchen table back in 1998, the Thanksgiving where I cooked every dish. But in photo after photo, something was off. In the wedding picture that once sat on my mantle, I was missing. Royce's face, clear as day. Clarine, somehow in the shot, smiling like she owned the ceremony. My own face was blurred, like someone forgot to let the camera focus. The audience chuckled, clapped, teared up. I stood there with a napkin shredded in my hand, the paper damp with sweat. The slideshow ended with a quote in script, "Family is who shows up." And just like that, I realized this wasn't a mistake. This was rewriting. Clarine took the microphone after, wiping fake tears with the same grace she used to fake every apology she ever gave. She called Mama the strongest woman I know, and herself the only one who never left her side. Then she thanked Royce. "He's been a rock for Mama these past few years," she said, reaching for his hand like they were on stage at an awards show. I waited, but my name never came. Nobody whispered. Nobody blinked. They just nodded, agreed, moved on. I stood and walked toward the drink table. I didn't want the tea. I just needed to walk, to move, to not let the feeling in my throat turn into something too loud. Behind me, a woman leaned toward her husband and said, "I didn't even know Liv had another daughter." I didn't flinch, didn't spin around. I just smiled and stirred my drink. After the cake was served and the toasts were done, I slipped out. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't need to. The sidewalk behind the community center was cracked and poorly lit. My heels echoed against the pavement. I took out my phone, opened the album where I stored all the originals. My wedding photo, me in the dress, Royce smiling stiffly beside me. Then I opened a screen grab from the video slideshow, the one they'd shown tonight. Same photo. Except in this version, I was gone. Faded. Cropped. Smudged like I was never really there. Accidents don't repeat themselves. That many times. That carefully. No. I sent the original to myself again. Then I deleted the edited version. If they wanted me out of their story, fine. But I'd keep the facts for mine. Dinner was on the stove before Royce walked in, late again. I didn't ask why, I just watched him toss his keys onto the counter like he owned the air around him. He muttered something about traffic, kissed my cheek like routine, then pulled out his phone and placed it face down on the table. I served fried catfish and greens. Southern, simple, the kind of meal that used to bring him to the table early. Not tonight. We ate in near silence, save for the occasional clink of his fork tapping the plate and my spoon stirring iced tea I didn't even want. Halfway through his second bite, he spoke. "Might have another late night Thursday. Things piling up at work." I nodded. Of course. It was the kind of answer that bought me time. Time to watch. Time to wait. I smiled between sips and looked at him like I hadn't already seen what was in the glove box 2 days before. After dinner, he said he needed a shower. I told him I'd finish the dishes. As soon as the water started running, I walked straight to his phone. No hesitation this time. My hands were steady. A message popped up. The contact name read Theodore L. I tapped to preview. It wasn't a man. You always say that, but if she finds out, you're on your own. Clarine's voice, as clear as Sunday morning in Natchez. She didn't realize the call had connected. I held the phone, didn't say a word. Just listened. There was a silence on the line, like she expected a reply. When none came, she hung up. Royce walked out of the bathroom moments later, towel around his neck, hair damp. He froze when he saw me holding his phone. "Someone called," I said. "Wrong number." I pressed the lock button, gently placed the phone back down, and walked into the kitchen like I hadn't just confirmed everything I already knew. He didn't ask anything else. I didn't offer anything either. That night, after he fell asleep, snoring softly like a man with nothing to hide, I took out his briefcase. He always kept it near, never let it out of sight. I opened it slowly. Inside, tucked into the leather planner, was a page that told the rest of the story. 3 p.m. Clarine. Don't park near house. Get bakery documents. Don't let Zora find out. Yet. I stared at those words like they'd been written with my blood. No emotion came right away. I just took out my phone and took a picture. Click. Evidence. That's all it was now. I put the planner back exactly as it was, closed the briefcase, and stood there in the dark, not even blinking. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't hurt. I was preparing. I stepped outside to the porch and sat in the rocking chair that had been there since Mama gave it to us after the wedding. It used to be a place of peace. Tonight, it felt like a planning room. The air was warm, heavy with magnolia, dust, and the kind of stillness that doesn't stay still for long. I thought about all the women I'd known, mothers, sisters, friends, taught to hold families together with duct tape and prayer, told to smile through betrayal, to be the bigger person, to protect men who didn't protect us back. Not this time. Grandma once told me, "Don't scream, baby. Just show them who taught you silence." So I sat, and I thought, not about revenge, but about exposure, about timing, about dignity. And then I said it, out loud to the stars overhead. "You just gave me the pen. Let me write the ending now. I didn't go because I was invited. I went because I needed to see it for myself, just how far they were willing to pretend I didn't exist. My cousin Deborah had mentioned the lunch when we bumped into each other at the pharmacy. Said Clarine was hosting a little get-together for family and old friends. Said it like I should have known already. But I hadn't heard a word, not from Mama, not from Clarine. Still, I showed up with a peach cobbler I made that morning. Nothing fancy, just what I'd bring when I wanted to make sure folks had a reason to smile, even if it wasn't for me. Clarine opened the door with that same theatrical surprise she wore so well. "Oh, you made it. How sweet." The house was full, laughter spilling from the kitchen, kids running down the hallway, the kind of noise that used to mean warmth, but not today. Today, it felt like I was standing on the front porch of someone else's life, peeking in through the window. I asked where Mama was. Clarine said she was upstairs resting. "She's had enough stimulation today," she added, not bothering to make eye contact. No one offered me a plate. No one asked where I'd been. I walked toward the dining room, past faces that used to know me better, and placed the cobbler down next to a pie someone else had already brought. I sat alone near the end of the table, just out of the family photo range. Rue's daughter, Everly, plopped beside me without hesitation. Her mouth full of macaroni, she grinned and swung her legs under the chair like they were too big for her frame. "You're Uncle Royce's wife, right?" she asked between bites. I nodded. She leaned in closer, lowered her voice like she was sharing a secret. "Uncle Royce and Aunt Clarine always hug when they think nobody's looking." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Everly smiled, oblivious. "Daddy says they're just friends, but they kiss sometimes." "Is that bad?" I swallowed hard. Food, words, the truth I didn't want to hear from a 6-year-old. "No, baby," I said softly. "It's not bad when people tell the truth." No one else heard her. Maybe that's why she said it to me. I stood up, smiled, and excused myself to the bathroom. The hallway blurred. My hands trembled. The sink wouldn't stop dripping, and neither would the sound of that little girl's voice repeating over and over again in my head. After lunch, Clarine suggested a game. 3 words you'd use to describe each family member, she said brightly. She passed around index cards and markers like a kindergarten teacher trying to make everyone feel seen. Everyone laughed, played along. One by one, names were called, words read aloud. Strong, funny, supportive. Applause followed each turn. Then it was my name. Silence. A long one. Someone finally read a card. Quiet. Another. Baker. The 3rd card. Blank. Clarine let out a little laugh. "Guess we're out of sugar." The group chuckled. I did too. On the outside, inside, something split. I didn't argue. Didn't ask whose card was blank. I just smiled and nodded like that's all I ever was, quiet and convenient. After the guests left, I found myself in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, hands washing dishes that weren't mine. No one asked. No one stopped me. I wrapped leftover pie slices in foil, folded napkins, cleared the plates, all while the sounds of fading conversations drifted from the other room like static. Clarine came in eventually. She leaned against the counter like she had something to say. "You don't have to do all that," she offered. I didn't look up. "It's what I've always done." She stayed quiet. I dried my hands, picked up the now empty cobbler dish. Before I walked out, I turned to her, just once. "You know what hurts most?" I asked, looking her square in the eye. "Not that you forgot me. That you convinced them I never mattered." Then I walked out. No hug, no goodbye, just the sound of my own footsteps heading out the back door. He'd left the coat hanging on the back of the chair in the laundry room, pockets still heavy like he didn't expect anyone to care what was inside. I was folding towels when I reached in out of habit. That's when I found it. An envelope, unopened, with Clarine's name on the front in Royce's handwriting. Inside, a receipt from the Riverwood Inn, room 206. Bottle of wine. 2 roses delivered to the room. The date? Same night as Mama's birthday. I didn't cry. Didn't drop it. just walked to the kitchen table and sat down. Looked at it like it had been waiting to be found. Opened my laptop, checked our bank account. He'd used the joint card, our card. My money paid for their wine and petals. I took photos, every angle, saved them in a folder labeled, "Not Yet." Then I slid the receipt back in the envelope, sealed it like I hadn't seen a thing, and returned it to his coat. That evening, I made soup, okra and chicken, packed it in a container, still warm. Tossed in some rolls for good measure, drove to Clarine's without calling first. She opened the door with that startled smile she reserved for guests she didn't expect but couldn't turn away. "Zora, what a surprise." "Brought dinner," I said. "Thought Mama might want something homemade." Clarine glanced behind her. "She's resting upstairs. Been tired all day." I nodded. "Mind if I freshen up before heading back? Long day." "Sure, bathroom's still down the hall." But I didn't go to the bathroom. I turned left instead of right and walked into Clarine's bedroom like I belonged. The room smelled like her, expensive, floral, artificial. I made it look like I was searching for lotion, casually opening the top drawer of her jewelry chest. There it was, a tube. Same brand, same residue around the cap, same Betrayal, now in a different house. I didn't touch it, just stood there, memorizing the angle, the color, the confirmation. Closed the drawer. Straightened the frame on her nightstand out of instinct. Walked back to the living room. Clarine was talking about some charity event. She smiled too wide when she saw me. "You look tired? Everything all right?" I smiled back. "Fine." She complimented my hair, said the curls looked less frizzy than usual. "Must be the humidity," I said. I handed her the rolls. "Careful with the rosemary. Too much of it ruins everything." She laughed politely. Didn't catch the edge in it. I leaned in for a quick hug before leaving. Whispered, "Thanks for taking care of Mama. Really." On the way home, I didn't play music. Just silence. The kind that doesn't ask questions anymore. Back in the kitchen, I spread the receipts, photos, screenshots across the table like puzzle pieces. Clicked through them one by one, adding them to a folder I'd been building. Labeled it "Not Yet." Uploaded it all to the cloud, then to a backup cloud. Created a third backup on a flash drive. Labeled that one, "If I Disappear." I picked up my phone and set a reminder for next week. Don't forget who they are when they're smiling. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning preservation, because this wasn't just an affair. It wasn't even just betrayal. This was a slow, quiet attempt to erase me, but I was still here, and I had proof. The message came in just after I rinsed my coffee mug. "Hey Zora, quick family brunch at Clarine's Sunday. You coming?" It was from Deborah, not Clarine, not Mama. I said I'd be there. When I pulled into Clarine's driveway, there were already 5 cars parked tight, a folding table set up on the patio with mismatched chairs. Clarine and Royce sat beside each other at the head like they were co-chairs of a committee no one elected them to. I brought store-bought muffins. Figured if I baked something, Clarine would call it dramatic. The greeting was light, breezy. "We didn't know if you'd want to come," she said, kissing the air near my cheek. "But glad you're here." There wasn't a place set for me at the table. I pulled over a metal chair from the edge and sat without saying a word. I'd learned long ago, don't ask for space, just take it. The meeting started off innocent. Talk about Mama's medications, her diet. Then it turned. "I've been thinking," Clarine began, "we should look into a more structured environment for her professional care." Royce nodded, already on the same script. Clarine tapped a clipboard. "We can turn the house into something useful, a central family hub. Efficient, right?" I stared down at my cup of juice. "And me?" I asked. "Where do I fit into all this?" Clarine didn't miss a beat. "Wherever you feel you add value." No mention of the bakery, no mention of the years I took Mama to appointments, covered bills, slept on her couch after her surgery. This wasn't planning. This was pre-eviction with nice table settings. I didn't argue. I just smiled. That kind of smile that tastes like pennies in your mouth. Later that night, I was scrolling on my phone when I saw it. Ruse TikTok. A shaky video clip of Clarine and Royce standing in the kitchen, laughing like an ad for fake happiness. The caption read, "Power couple holding this family together while others just bake cookies." Thousands of views, comments like, "Now that's real love," and "Clarine's always been the glue." I didn't comment. I downloaded the video, added it to the folder, not for revenge, for record. The kitchen table became my war room. Folders, notes, photos, printed receipts. I sat with it all spread out in front of me and took a breath. My hands didn't shake, my chest didn't tighten. I was beyond all that now. I picked up an old bakery order slip and flipped it over. Wrote a sentence. "Truth doesn't need applause, it just needs a spotlight." That line was mine now. My North Star. I stood and walked over to the bookshelf. Moved the small potted fern to the side. There it was. The camera. Hidden clean between two cookbooks. Testing complete. Angle perfect. Audio clear. I wasn't hoping they'd stop anymore. I was preparing for when the world would see they didn't. It came in a plain white envelope. No logo, no stamp. Just slipped into my mailbox like a quiet threat. I opened it over the kitchen sink, hands still damp from rinsing dishes. A flagged transaction notice from the bank. Attached were two documents. The first, an official business filing. A new LLC registered in Clarine's name, using my bakery's name with a minor change. Delahay's Bakehouse. New logo, same address. The second, an ownership declaration. Royce listed as co-owner. Signed and dated 3 weeks ago. 2 days before the brunch. Taped to the back was a printed email from Clarine to the notary. Her words were matter of fact. No shame. Handle Zora by June. Handle me. Not talk to me. Not warn me. Handle me. I made 3 copies. Stored one in my trigger file, the folder I'd kept in the locked drawer behind the spice cabinet. Added it to the cloud, synced across my devices. I wasn't going to fight them in private anymore. That night, after I poured myself a glass of tea and turned off the lights in the bakery, I pulled up the camera footage from last Thursday. I hadn't checked it since setting up the system. The file was time-stamped 9:42 p.m. Royce had entered through the side door, wearing the jacket I gave him last Christmas. Clarine came in 10 minutes later, carrying a file folder. They didn't talk much, didn't need to. She opened the folder, showed him some documents, then leaned in and kissed him. Nothing rushed, nothing secretive. They weren't hiding. They believed I'd never see. Before she turned away, she said, "Zora doesn't know how close we are. Not really." I paused the video, sat with it for a few minutes, let the quiet fill the room. Then I encrypted the file, uploaded it to every backup I had, copied it to a flash drive and labeled it Smile. The next morning, I called my cousin Mary, who worked at the paper. "Got something you might want," I said. She asked, "Is this personal?" "No," I told her. "It's public." I dropped the flash drive in an envelope. No name, no return address, just a note. "You'll know when to open it." That evening, Clarine was hosting her grand opening for the bakery expansion. Invitations had gone out to local businesses, city council members, anyone with a pulse and a title. I parked across the street and waited. Let the crowd build. Saw Mama's car pull up, assisted by a church friend. Liv looked tired, or maybe tired of pretending. I sent the documents and the video to myself one last time. Subject line, "Let's see who's really the boss." Then I stepped out, folder in hand, walked slowly, deliberately. The patio was full. Clarine stood at the microphone, giving her welcome speech, basking in the applause. When she spotted me, her smile flickered, but stayed. "Glad you could come," she said from the mic, trying to keep it steady. I nodded. "You always did love center stage." Just remember, when the curtain drops, people see who's behind it. A few heads turned. I stepped closer, leaned in and whispered, "Smile for the cameras, big sister. You're finally going viral." I didn't shout, didn't explain, just held the folder up, high enough for the front row to read the letterhead. Then I turned and walked away. I watched from across the street, not from a distance, not hidden, but close enough to feel the weight of what was about to happen. I'd set it up hours earlier. A pan of oil left just long enough on low flame, a rigged igniter beneath it, enough smoke to set off alarms, not burn the house, just enough to draw attention. Inside my house, my kitchen, Clarine and Royce believed I was out meeting a vendor. They'd taken over my home like they'd taken over everything else. My name, my bakery, my blood. I texted the fire department from a burner phone. Heavy smoke, possible unconscious occupants. Then I stepped out of the neighbor's house, blending into the group forming outside. The sirens came fast. One engine, two paramedics. Neighbors whispered, pointing toward the roof. I said nothing, just folded my arms and waited. My nephew, Marcus, was the first to jump from the truck. His boots hit the ground hard as he ran toward the door and broke it open with one solid kick. Then silence. A beat later, I heard Clarine scream. Marcus stumbled out, face pale, eyes darting toward me, then back to the house. "They're stuck," he muttered. "They're stuck together." Inside, Royce and Clarine, half naked, bound by their own shame and a tube of glue, were yelling for help. The very glue I'd swapped into the glove box weeks ago. Liv arrived a minute later, breathless, ushered by Mrs. Chambers from across the street. "They said the house was smoking," she said, confused. But what she saw, what everyone saw. Phones were out, recording, capturing Royce screaming, Clarine sobbing, firefighters trying to peel them apart without ripping skin. No one said my name. No one needed to. I didn't flinch, didn't cry, just stood there, still as stone, watching the world put two and two together. The moment the fire was contained and the paramedics got them on stretchers, I walked slowly across the lawn. The crowd parted without a word. Marcus stood near the truck, his helmet in hand, jaw clenched. I handed him a manila folder, on the front, in bold marker, "For Mama." "Don't give it to her yet," I said. "Let her see what they are first." Inside, screenshots, bank records, camera stills, the hotel receipt, the video file. Clarine didn't look at me. Royce didn't dare. A teenager behind me whispered, "Isn't that her husband?" Another voice answered, flat, "Was." The footage hit social media within an hour. I didn't post it. I didn't stop it either. By dusk, the street was cleared and the lights were gone. I unlocked my front door and stepped into the still lingering smoke. I opened the windows, let it air out. The house smelled like old secrets now. I wiped down the counters, picked up the fallen vase Clarine had knocked over, sat at the kitchen table where they'd stood, glued together, just hours earlier. In the hallway, I spotted the tube, half empty, cap missing. I picked it up and dropped it in the box marked proof, sealed it. Then I sat alone in the dark and opened my journal. "This wasn't revenge," I wrote. "This was reclamation." I opened the bakery 2 hours earlier than usual. No lights yet, just the soft hum of the proofing oven and the smell of cinnamon creeping through the air like armor I'd slipped into overnight. By 7, the regulars started arriving. No one said a word about what had happened. Some nodded politely. A few avoided eye contact. Others stared too long at the ground, like guilt could be scraped off the tile with their shoes. Then the boy from across the street, my son's old friend, stepped in. Didn't say anything. Just placed a bouquet of small wildflowers near the counter and walked out. The note read, "We saw it all." Later, a woman in scrubs whispered on her way out, "You held your head like a queen." I didn't respond. I poured her coffee, smiled, wiped the counter. That was enough. Midway through my shift, while wiping down the glass case, my phone buzzed. A notification from an email I hadn't checked in weeks. It was from a bakery supply company. "Happy 25th anniversary to the Felder family bakery. Thank you for 25 years of loyalty." I froze. Royce didn't text, didn't call, didn't even leave a card. The only recognition of that day, our supposed anniversary, came from a company trying to sell me new ovens. I stared at the email, then quietly deleted it. Not because I was angry, because it didn't matter anymore. I whispered under my breath, "I remember enough for both of us." The work kept moving. By late afternoon, I walked to the old mailbox I hadn't used since I moved out of the house with Royce. Habit, maybe, or instinct. Inside was a cream-colored envelope, slightly bent at the corners. Addressed to Mrs. Clarine Felder. No return address. I opened it. It was a handwritten note in blue ink. Dear Mom and Dad, thank you for always being more of a mother to me than my real one ever was. I'm proud to call you mine. Love, ever May. I read it 3 times. The paper crumpled slightly in my hands, but I didn't tear it. I didn't curse. I didn't march to their house. Instead, I folded it neatly and slid it into the same folder where the glue tube, receipts, and screenshots lived. The same folder now tucked inside my desk, marked with one word, proof. They weren't just taking my name, they were raising a daughter in it. The next morning, I pinned a photo to the bakery's community board. Me, age 29, flour on my apron, holding a 3-tier cake like it was my firstborn, handwritten under the frame, founder, still standing. By noon, the notes started showing up around it, Post-its, torn napkins, Sharpie on scrap paper. We knew. Thank you for never leaving. You built this. I didn't respond to the notes, didn't share the picture online, didn't explain the glue or the affair or the fire truck. But that wall spoke louder than any courtroom ever could. And Natchez, Mississippi? It was my jury. As I turned the sign to closed that night and locked the front door, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. They tried to rewrite me, but I found the pen first. Clarine showed up at the bakery one afternoon with a box of store-bought muffins. No warning. No, I'm sorry. Just that awkward, rehearsed smile and words wavering about family falling apart and too many eyes watching. She sounded more like she was auditioning for pity than remorse. I wiped my hands on my apron, met her gaze, said quietly, "You don't have to explain. You made your choices. So did I." Her face shifted, the kind of crack in perfect makeup you can't fix with more frosting. She stumbled through excuses about stress and appearances. I leaned across the counter and handed her a folder. Inside, documents for removing Royce's name from the bakery ownership. "No drama," I told her. "Just facts." She took the papers like they were poison. Royce texted later, asking to see me. I told him he had 5 minutes in my office. He arrived looking tired, his regret put on fast forward. He said, "I messed up," and it didn't mean anything, like saying sorry replaces years of lies. I didn't argue. I replied, "You didn't just lose a wife, you lost your witness, and your cover." I slid an envelope across the desk. Divorce papers. Notarized, unsent, unforgiving. "You wanted freedom," I said. "Here it is, in black and white." That night, I drove to Mama's cousin's house where she was staying. She looked softer in that living room, like peace was finally settling around her bones. She whispered, "I saw the videos. I'm sorry, baby." I didn't cry, just took her hand and said, "We aren't always daughters, mothers understand, but we're still daughters." Mama's eyes filled, and she said, "You deserved better, from all of us." She meant the family, the whole mess. I left her a framed photo of me from years ago, holding a cake in my first bakery. I wrote on the back, "Still here, still baking." Back at home that evening, I opened my laptop and quietly updated the website. The Felders was gone. Now it read, "Delahay's again. My name, my story." I signed a lease to a small spot across town. No grand opening, no fanfare, just steady work. I printed a new sign, "Delahay's again. We start from scratch." Painted it myself. It felt good to use my hands for something real again. I arranged to donate the old bakery to a nonprofit that teaches single mothers culinary skills. Mama would have liked that. Making something good come from broken things. I locked that old door for the last time. No tears, no slammed hinges, just a whisper in the dark. Thank you for the silence that let me hear my own voice again. I walked into the community legal center wearing calm. No tremble in my voice, no tear in my eye. The envelope in my hand held every hard truth. Documents for brand theft, emotional distress, property fraud, filed against Clarine and Royce. My cousin, the attorney, nodded at the clerk who stamped the papers in minutes. A notice went up on the board. Trial date confirmed. Gautreaux versus Delahaye. I didn't linger. This wasn't about rage. It was about record. 2 weeks later, It felt like spring had broken overnight. The new bakery, fresh signage reading Delahaye's again, opened its doors amid crowd murmurs. Local reporters were there, documenting this quiet renewal after a public scandal. I gave a short speech, just a few lines. Thank you to everyone who believed me, even when I had no proof. Behind me, inside the bakery, a plaque glinted in the light. Built from silence, restored by truth. No mention of them. The town would read between that line. People lined the sidewalk, not for pastries, but for the principle. Later that night, a plain envelope appeared on my doorstep, no return address. I opened it on the porch. Inside, the original birthday card I found in Royce's car months ago, handwriting underneath a new line in blue ink. You were always stronger than both of us. C. I didn't smile. I didn't break. I placed the card in a glass box on my bookshelf. A note beside it, in my handwriting. Not all forgiveness needs a conversation. In the days that followed, I began mentoring 3 young women, survivors of manipulation, teaching them pastry skills and offering them space to rebuild. I also set up a small scholarship in Mama's name for daughters in rural areas, often ignored or erased. Mama never fully recovered, but calls every week just to say, I see you now. Royce moved out of state. Clarine stayed, but she walked lower these days. I closed my journal one evening and wrote, You can't inherit what you tried to destroy, but I can rebuild what you tried to erase. And right below, I wrote what I could finally say without looking back. And I did.